the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us pray especially for Christians in Pakistan. Yesterday, the two churches were bombed. Nobody speaks about that. And the Pope has to pray for them. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So this morning we continue about the knowledge of God, and now we study the object. What does God know, and how we can conciliate the knowledge of God with our freedom. That is the subject of that class. So if you go to page 11 in your summary, in fact, the object of our knowledge, it is what we know, everything we know. So what are the objects of the knowledge of God? It is all things that God knows. God knows. So what does He know? That is what we are studying now. So what are not these objects? These objects are not in the sense that they determine God's knowledge. Okay, let us compare the knowledge of God with human knowledge. In human knowledge, we have the intellect, and agent intellect, remember that? And we have the phantasm, the form, the sensible form of the thing coming in our imagination. And we can abstract from that, and we have an intelligible first impressed species. Insight, you remember that? Huh? It is the insight. I understand. Understand insight. The first time I understand something. So it is pressing my mind and putting in my mind some form. It is the way we know. We know receiving form from our sense knowledge, and those forms, abstract, are impressing our mind. So that is the way we depend on something outside of our mind. Is the knowledge of God the same? No. Because can God depend on something outside of Himself? No. Because if He depends on something outside of Himself, He will receive a form. If He receives a form, He passes from potency to act. Therefore, God must know everything within Himself. Nothing from outside, in His own essence. So I mean, the object of His knowledge is, He knows everything in His essence. He cannot know something outside of Himself. Because if He knows something, He knows from, of course, He knows things outside of Himself. But it is not the thing outside of Himself that informs Him. You understand that, huh? It's very important. So when you see a cat, the form of the cat determines you, perfects you, gives you something new to your knowledge. Okay? So can God receive something from outside? He cannot. Otherwise He will be not perfect. He will not be omniscient. He will not be infinite. We saw that before, huh? God is infinite. So in His infinite in His being, infinite in His activities also, in His knowledge. So His knowledge is infinite, and it cannot determine by nothing outside of it. Okay? So we continue. So in fact, there is no limit to the knowledge of God, because God is infinite. God must know everything. He knows everything. That means all things that are knowable. We know that being is true, one, true, and good. So the fact that being exists, it is intelligible. So every intelligible reality, every being is known by God, for the reason that it cannot exist. Because every being outside of God is as value. It depends on Him. So the knowledge of God does not depend on the being value. The knowledge of God can depend only on Himself. Okay? But He knows everything. Nothing can exist without His knowledge and His will. Okay? So all that is knowable, all being. Therefore, to everything that has any reality, actually or virtually, virtually for us, or for God. For example, I can imagine the acorns of an oak, can produce billion of oaks. I can imagine. It is virtually possible that every acorn produce, but in fact it will not be that. But it is a possibility. It is something we can know, even if it does not exist. Because God knows what is existing in reality, and also everything that can exist possible. We see that soon. Okay? Because for anything that has any reality, that is the same sense knowable. The fact of being exists is true, is intelligible, or if you want, is knowable. Intelligible, that means to be known by an intellect. Okay? So let us now make distinction in the objects of known by God. First, He knows all existing things. Everything existing now, in the actuality now. Okay? He knows everything existing now, everything existing in the past, everything existing will be existing in the future. What is important here is the word existing. Actually, and they will be real. For example, the men and women, they will exist in 3,000 if the world continues to exist. God knows them, because they are existing for Him. We saw one of the attributes of God we study is the eternity. Don't forget, huh? What is the eternity? It is the permanent nunc, now. So He knows everything in His eternal act of existence. So for Him there is no past, there is no future, there is only present, eternal present. But He knows that we know. He knows how we know. So He knows what is future for us and what is past for us. But for Him it's not past, it is present. So the distinction past, present and future, it is because of our finite knowledge, finite existence. We are in time and space, and we pass from the past to the future through the present. But for God, there is no passage, there is no change. So everything is known. But those existing in the present, or having existing in the past, or it will exist in the future, are for Him as existing now. No? It's a meditation. I hope you will not sleep. Okay. So God knows Himself, God, the infinite, and that which is not God, the finite being. So His knowledge is infinite, so He knows imperfectly, and He knows also everything existing. And in one instant of knowledge. It is not discourse, it is not analyzed, it does not reason. Everything is known in one instant. How? We cannot know. To understand that, we must be God. But we must know. We must know at least that He does not know as we know. We know successively. We know existing things, they exist successively, but He knows that in one instant. That is eternity. When we speak about eternity, it is the duration of the now. There is an instant. We cannot, our instant has no duration for us. Huh? As soon as I say one is no more there. It's two. And when I say two, it is three, you know. But God, everything is okay. Now, secondly, all merely possible things which could have existence, but have not and will not have existence. Well, I came back to my example of acorn. You know what is an acorn, huh? Oak is a tree, and we have little acorn. You squirrel like that, you roll after that. Huh? And suppose a tree in its existence produce 100,000 acorns, suppose. Maybe only 3 or 4 or 5 will become an oak. All the other will not become oak, but they could become an oak. So they are possible. So God knows not only the 5 who will produce an oak, He knows also all those who are able to produce an oak and another. You know, when the people abort, for example, sometimes, unfortunately, God knows not only who is that baby, but He knows if that baby married in the future, will have children. He knows all the possibility. He knows that maybe he become a holy sister, or a boy, maybe a priest. He knows all the possibility. We know some possibility. We know that. For example, yesterday I said the Mass and they presented children. It was a beautiful Mass in the Polish parish. And many people, they came to communion with 4 or 5 children around them. Wonderful, I like that, because Jesus liked so much children. And when mother presented me her girl, I thought, what will become that girl? The future. But God knows all the possibility. And she can become a nun, she can become a doctor, she can become a... Imagine, we can do that. If we can do that, of course, we are very limited in our possibility. But God knows all the possibilities. Even for my life, your own life, think about that. You become a teacher, a sister, a brother, a priest, etc. But it was possible you become another thing, a gangster. No? So God knows all the possibility. We cannot refrain God from knowing of the possibility. So that there is no limit to His knowledge. Not only He knows what exists in the present, past, and future. He knows also all the things which will never produce something, but they are able to produce something. When you cut a tree, an apple tree, you don't know, you can't suppose all the apple they will be able to grow for many years. But God knows that much better than we know. Okay? That is we call the knowledge of possible, the merely possible thing. But there is a distinction between merely possible and impotency. Simply possible, or merely possible. What is the distinction between that? Impotency is linked with actuality. For example, when you will be ordained a priest, I can say, when I had a student in my class, he was in potency. I have the grace to have 6 bishops among my students. In camp, 6. When they were in my class, you know, or they were, one was in charge of the goats and the sheep, another was, you know, and it was very funny, you have a lot of fun, and now he's the president of the bishop of Gabon, another is bishop in North Cameroon. They were in potency, but they did not know that. They were in potency because they became, although they become priests. But other in my class, one for example, he was in my class, and he became now the ambassador of his country to Vatican. His name is Joaquin. So he went to represent Equatorial Guinea to the Vatican City. But when he was in my class, I did not know that, but he was in potency to become an ambassador, but not in potency to become a priest, because he's not a priest, he's married now, you know. So that's the difference. Not only God knows what you will do, what will pass into action, into actualities, but you know all the possibilities you can do. That is very important when we speak about freedom. Not only He knows your action, He knows all the action you could have done, and you should have done. By omission, okay? Okay. So, but there is a third category we call the conditioned future. God knows not only all the possibilities, He knows also those who depend on condition. For example, God knows from all eternity that I depended on the marriage of my father and my mother. So His knowledge of me was a conditioned knowledge. Not because God did not know, but what He knows, because He knows what He knows, was conditioned because of some circumstances. God knows all the conditioned future. And the conditioned future for man is free act. Because the free act is conditioned. For example, when somebody decides to enter a religious community, before I can say he will or she will become a religious at the condition she or he may make a novitiate, you know, or perpetual vows. I can say that. It is if he will become a priest, if he studied theology, or if a bishop ordained him, or if, etc. You know, but God knows all those conditions. And He knows the condition act. Because when I do something free, the knowledge of God depends on my will.
On your what?
My will. They depend, no, He knows what I will do. But He knows, for example, if you become a religious, it is because that decision was taken from you, no? And if you say no, well, you are not free to be here. So, you know, He knows the futurable. That means those who depend on other conditions. He knows not only the fact, he knows the action or the being that depend on many conditions. It is the reason why we say, God knows the condition, future, or futurables. And among that, you have, what is that? Even that will have happened if a certain condition were fulfilled, but cannot happen because the condition is not fulfilled. For example, if, sometimes you think, if I have done that, if I enter the Dominican, and my first desire is to become a Dominican, imagine a Dominican white, like St. Thomas. But God sent me with the holy apostle, a little community, circumstances, you know, that is, is a condition. But God knows what I would have done if I had become a Dominican. You know that. I don't know. He knows. It probably because he knows that, he said it's better for you to become the holy apostle. Okay? But that knowledge of God provokes a lot of question. No? A lot of question. He knows everything. He knows even the action you will take freely, futurable, conditioned by your will. And we are free. Okay, we'll discuss that after, in a few minutes. So I go now to the middle. Moreover, for an intelligent government of the universe, and God is the one who orders the universe, it is necessary that God should know, be careful, very important, not only what will happen under condition that are realized. Here he knows the thing that exists. We call that knowledge of vision. St. Thomas called that knowledge of vision. That means we see. We see. I see crutches there. I see. I cannot say I don't see. I see. Okay, that is knowledge of vision. When I see you, you have the vision. I have a vision. I see you. Okay. But also, what will have happened under other and unrealized condition? We call that knowledge of simple intelligence. St. Thomas called that simple intelligence. That means you can reflect on all the possibilities. We can make a movie with that, you know. If we see that sometimes in a movie, imagine when the action is there and the actor is thinking about other things. Imagine other situations parallel to the situation. I saw that in a movie yesterday. It was doing something, but at the same time, it was reflecting on another thing, linking with another theater play. So we can see things. Not only that exists, we can see things that can exist, or could exist, or can in the future exist. Okay? So therefore, we must include in God's omniscience a knowledge of these conditioned futures. So the distribution according to diversity of object. This distinction between the diverse objects. We saw the object, the knowledge of the thing existing, the knowledge of thing able to exist, but they will never exist, especially, and also the futurable, the knowledge of the thing conditioned by some circumstances or by the will of man. Okay, I go to the text. So they are founded on the analogy of our way of knowing, and understood it not to mean the recognition of any difference in that God's knowledge. We never forget, if we put in the knowledge of God some distinction, it is not because they are distinguished in God or distinct in God, but they are distinct in our mind, because we think things separately. In fact, it is the same reasoning as the attributes of God. We study that separately. We have a reason because of the effect, but we must say in God they are one with His existence, with His essence. Okay. So it is here the text of St. Thomas. It is not here. He's explained the knowledge of vision. That knowledge is infallible because it's the same. I see you. It is. I can affirm with infallibility that you are here. No, I'm not the Pope, but it is that evidence. 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 Of course, if I drink two glasses of vodka, maybe I will see 25 seminarians instead of 15 students. You know? But that is not normal. When my senses are normal, they give me what I receive what they give me. So that knowledge is, we say, knowledge of vision for us. And that kind of knowledge is infallible. So the knowledge of God is infallible in regard of everything He knows. Huh?
Infallible, Father?
Infallible. Cannot make a mistake. Infallibility of the Pope. You know?
Oh, okay.
Okay, page 13. So in man, our way of knowing is we see what is actual at present, but in regard of merely possible thing. For example, I can become superior general of my community, I can become master of knowledge, I can become a saint, we canonized on Rome, etc. We can, huh? Oh, I know, you are so humble, you never thought about that. You never think about that. But you know, we know the possible, we don't discuss about things we know directly. There is no reasoning, but we reason about things possible. Our way of knowing possible being is only through reason. But God does not reason. God knows directly what exists and what can exist. Okay? So I go now in God. First, knowledge of vision. He knows His essence, and He knows actual being. And when I say actual being, that means existing. In the past for us, but for Him there is no past, no future. They exist. Secondly, knowledge of simple intelligence. The knowledge of the pure possible. Those who will not exist. They will not exist. Okay? By knowing His own essence, He is capable of being imitated or participated in finite being. He knows, God, how creature can share in His attributes. He knew that, but of course He did not will that every possibility be realized, of course. He knows that it's possible. Okay? Third, now, it is because the scientia media, that is coming from Father Molina. Okay, it is the knowledge of conditioned futures and free contingent future. Contingent, that means the future will happen if the contingent is there. For example, you can say the snow, snow will melt. The condition, we have sun, warm weather, you know. That is a conditioned future. Okay? But among the conditioned future, we have the future depending on the free will of man. Because it is a condition. For example, think about when the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary. He asked her to become the mother of God. It was a conditioned future. The future was depending on the fiat of Mary, no? It was conditioned. And Mary was free to accept. But no, God knows from all eternity she will accept. But He knows from all eternity she will accept freely. He knows from eternity that the salvation of the world and the birth of Jesus was depending, conditioned by the fiat, the yes of Mary.
What if she didn't?
I don't know. You know, because why I don't know? Because I don't know all the possibilities.
Yeah, but you're saying God does.
Yeah, God knows. I don't know. God knows.
I know.
Yeah.
I asked this to little kids this summer, and one of the kids answered, "Execution!"
Oh, okay. That is very, that paragraph, we will read the paragraph, it's very, very touchy. Okay? I go to, in 1588, Luis de Molina is a Jesuit. In his book Concordia Liberi Arbitria, the concord of the free arbitrium, men, with grace of God. The problem was the conciliation, the same problem St. Augustine, Pelagius. How we can conciliate the grace of God and the freedom of man. That's the problem. So introduce a third mode of knowledge, of scientia media, a kind of intermediate knowledge partaking in the nature of both, a nature of the knowledge of vision and simple intelligence. I continue. And just necessary to explain God's knowledge of the conditioned future and free or contingent future, without conflicting with the freedom of the human will. Okay, so he introduces a category, because the problem is here, a big problem. Well, I don't answer immediately, because we have to have other information before. So we have to distinguish two kinds of object in the divine knowledge. The primary object of his knowledge and the secondary object. The primary object of his knowledge, it is himself. But when we know, we saw that just before, we receive the form of the thing. We call that intelligible, impressed species. Those who study, if I remember that. The phantasm is illuminated by the intellect, and the impressed, intelligible, impressed species, impressed by a passive intellect. But in the case of God, what is that impressed, intelligible species? It is himself.
It is himself?
Himself. He cannot receive something from outside. We saw that just before. So the knowledge of God, the first knowledge God has is the knowledge of himself. That is interesting when you think about Socrates. What Socrates used to say? No te seotan. Know yourself. In fact, we know other through the knowledge from ourselves, no? We know everything from our own experience. So Socrates is very right, and here we can apply that to God. God knows first himself. We know ourselves, not perfectly. He knows himself perfectly. That's the difference. He knows himself from all eternity. We know ourselves successively. When you are 6 years old, you don't know yourself the same way you know yourself when you are 12. And when you are a holy sister, or holy brother, or holy seminarian, you don't know yourself the same way, I hope. You should know yourself better. And knowing yourself better, you know other better. You can, for example, if you never had experience of suffering, for example, how you can understand others, the suffering of others?
Yeah.
We have the notion of joy from our own experience of joy. Somebody who never suffer hunger, he cannot know what is hunger. Is the reason why we have a banquet with rice and water. Yes, that's it. As God knows himself perfectly. First, that is the primary, his divine essence is the intelligible species. And page 14, consequently, next page, the divine essence must be the primary object of knowledge. Therefore, God sees himself in himself because he sees himself through his essence. Here we can go back to Aristotle. He said, it is the thought thinking itself. You know? And that was a question for Aristotle. Secondary object are all the other things that God, because God knows them in himself. You know, God does not depend on the thing to know. He knows the thing in himself. The carpenter who did here, he was not able to say he knows the death from himself. He knows the death when the death was finished. That is a good death. I did a good job, you know. God is not saying, I did a good job. No. Of course, in the Bible we say it was, but philosophically speaking, he received the thing from outside. He cannot receive anything from outside. So his knowledge must be complete, perfect within himself. That means he knows everything, the whole universe, all the possible, all the futurable, all the conditioned being in himself. Okay? You have no choice. If you say he receives something from outside, he is no more God. This is the reason why we cannot pretend to change the will of God, the mind of God. And we please God. In fact, when we please God, we receive that. It's the same when you look at yourself in the mirror. You don't please the mirror, you please yourself. No? Later, God said, I made man to my image and my resemblance. So man, when he look at God, he has nothing to God, because God knows him within, from within, from within. But man, when he adore God, he glorify God, like a mirror, he receives that. The mirror receives nothing. The mirror doesn't change. Sometimes you see, oh, that person was so ugly that when she or he, nothing, only he look at himself or herself in the mirror broke. Oh, that is a joke, huh? In reality, the mirror does not change. It is absolutely the same. The same. When you leave, it's not affected by your presence. Think about that. It's an image to understand that we can add nothing to that. But when we look at God, we contemplate God, we receive from Him, like I receive from the mirror. But the mirror does not change. Yes, brother?
No, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, never mind.
No problem. Okay, so I secondly, go to the text. That text is very, very good, very important, no? But it does not mean that God does think in general on the aspect of being. Of course, God knows in general. He knows on the aspect of being as we know. But rather, God knows all things with proper knowledge in their distinction from one another. He knows everything one by one. He knows every electron one by one. He knows every proton one by one. He knows every photon one by one. He knows each of us individually. Everything individually. At the same time, you know them in the whole also. I saw a few years ago, I received a site. It was about a picture taken during the Stanley Cup in Vancouver. A few years ago, it was Stanley Cup, and there was a kind of not riot, but you know, they were not satisfied. So 250,000 people, they gathered in Vancouver. And of course, they take picture. And on the computer, we have the picture. They say, click on any picture and you will see what you will see. So, yeah, maybe thousands of people will click on one. The picture is perfect. So God knows the totality. He knows one by one. And that camera is wonderful, it's powerful. Imagine, we know everyone. Everyone in the crowd was able to be distinct clearly. You know, when they take a picture from the satellite, they can read the plaque on the car. Huh? But God knows. That is wonderful, but it's not the knowledge of God. You know? God knows everything from within. He knows everything, not only in their existence, but in their activities. He knows all our thoughts, our desire. He knows better than we know ourselves. And we say, He is present to us more than we are present to ourselves. You know? I don't know all myself, you know. He knows all my selves. He knows where are your hair, brother. You know? So when we see that, we understand why. Those who reflect on God in the past, they kneel down and they have a relation with God. We call it a religion. I continue. Things in their individuality are the object of the divine creative act, as well as the object of his divine providence. So he knows them because knowing them, he makes them, he creates them. Not only he creates them, he sustains them in their existence. He knows he sustains them not only in their existence, even in their operation. The bird is saying, God is, no, that bird is saying, God knows everything. Of the Freemason, they have the triangle with the eye of God. Huh? God knows everything. Huh? So we cannot, if you deny, God knows, okay, when I was a boy, we have a joke. We say, no, God does not know everything. He does not know what is in our basement. Why? Because we don't have a basement. You know, a joke, a kid joke. And of course, God cannot knows what is contradictory. He cannot know what is a square round. He knows that we think about that, but that is stupid to say that. He knows how we are stupid. Okay, I continue. And all things must be known, not merely in general, but individual. Because nothing can exist without being known by God, without being willed by God, without being sustained in creation by God. Why? Because every finite being is ab alio, depending on another, contingent. Contingent in everything. Even every word I say to you is sustained by God. That's a big problem. Isis is sustained by God also. No? The problem here is there. Okay, we continue. So, the difficulty for Aristotle. You know, Aristotle said God is the thinking itself, so he must not be distracted by the word he organized. So God, it was difficult for Aristotle to accept the idea of providence. But in fact, when God knows himself, he knows everything in himself. That is the solution given by St. Thomas. And he is not distracted by the world because he knows the world in his own act of existing. Is the reason why we can say the world can be eternally created, but the world will not be God because it will exist by another. Okay? Next page, page 15, at the top of the page. God, is that this quotation of St. Thomas? Huh? So God sees himself in himself because he sees himself through his essence, what he is, and he sees other things not in themselves but in himself, inasmuch as this essence contains the similitude of thing other than himself. In fact, every being exists is a participation in the being of God, in the perfection of God. He knows every being imitating his own being. He knows every kindness in them because that kindness is imitating, participating his own goodness. You know, so God knows because we share in his being, in his existence, we share in his attribute. He knows that like that. You know. So now we go to the next question: the divine foreknowledge. You know, we already spoke a little bit about that, but now concentrate on that. First, to say foreknowledge is not exact, is not accurate. God does not foreknows. He knows, period. You understand the difference, huh? Foreknowledge is to know before. God does know before, he knows now, because there is no future for God. There is only, so we cannot know, strictly speaking. In fact, to speak about the foreknowledge of God is not accurate. We can say only the knowledge of God. Because to introduce, it is foreknowledge of God for us, not for God. Okay? So, strictly speaking, God knows, He does not foreknow. Foreknowledge implies a succession of events. Foreknow, that means it's not now, but I preview, He will do that. He will come, I preview that, you know. For example, I preview that the 2 last weeks of April, you will study with intensity. I preview that. It's the future, you know. But it's not realized. God is there is no provision in God. God's now. If you see about providence of God, it is in our perspective. Providere means to see for the future, preview the future. In fact, providence and foreknowledge, they are very close, one to the other. So when we speak about providence of God, it is in relation with us. God does not preview, God knows, period. Okay? If you say preview, you introduce a passage from potency to one. I continue. For God, the whole of this time series is present to that eternity. Therefore, there is knowledge of things which are future with reference to the present interval of time is for man, is not for God. So for man, we are in time. We can speak about future, we can speak about foreknowledge, we can speak about prevision, but God has no prevision. God has only vision. Okay? So knowing the future. Future of event implies a necessary connection. That means if I know the future as a man, here as a man. For example, if you put water into the freezer, what will you obtain? Ice. How we can know that? How can you know the future? Because the law of science, because the uniformity, every time you put water, it becomes ice. And when you put something on the fire, it becomes hot. No? You can predict. Because that is the way we announce the future for us. Why? Because there is a necessary connection. A necessary connection, for example, between my freezer and ice, or necessary connection between fire and hot water. You know? Like a necessary connection. That is the reason why I can produce the future. For me, and for us as a man. Okay? Because we know that through scientific laws. And through scientific laws, we can predict that that will happen if we do that. You know, okay. So, in fact, we use the principle of the uniformity of nature. If you say if P, then Q. If we know the cause, we know the effect. Because there is a necessary link. For example, if P, if you put your hand on the oven, on the fire, okay, what will happen? Q, you will burn, no? Yep. And you know that because there is a necessary link between the cause and the effect. So we can preview the future only if there is that necessary link. Well, of course, God knows that also. But God knows always, He knows also what is not necessary. For example, freedom of man and its free decision. And the link is not necessary. Otherwise, man will not be free. Okay. So, that is the first. And we have a real relation between what God does and creation. The relation is real. You remember that, That means the creation depends on God. to depend on God. But God does not depend on creation. That relation is purely a relation of reason. So I depend on God, God does not depend on me. The relation between the world, the universe, and God is real, necessary. The relation between God and the world is not necessary. It is a relation of a reason. A reason. God can exist, He is complete without the world. The world, the universe, has nothing to His perfection, to His knowledge, to His love. Okay? That is, of course, very difficult. I agree with you, but we cannot go outside of that. Huh? Okay? That prepares you for your class of theology, and that class is very, very important. Class of theology.
Trouble.
Okay, next page, page 16. So here we call that when we know the future, we call that the contingent connection. Here it is a necessary connection between fire and hot water. Between freedom and free decision, it is not necessary. It is a contingent connection. Is the reason why every act of man, a free act of man, will be a mystery. Nobody can explain perfectly a free decision. Nobody. We try to drive, but we can never arrive to a full answer. Never. Because it is contingent. If it was necessary, for example, I can say with certitude that a spider will make a web. I'm sure with certitude that a bee will build an hexagon. I'm sure of that. Because there is determination, there is necessity. But they cannot say that a man will buy a Mazda or a Toyota or a Buick. And sometimes we cannot explain totally why we buy that car instead of another car. And after that we say, oh, I should have bought the other. You know? Why are you here? Can you explain completely, perfectly why you are here? I cannot. I cannot. For myself, I cannot say something. I say, sometimes I'm stupid. Yeah, I cannot. Cannot. Okay. So that is very important, again, positivism. Because we have many actions in our life, they are real, but we cannot measure them. Imagine if we cannot measure. There is a mystery in the free decision of man. How we can deny that mystery in God? No? Even when you have an examination, for you it's a mystery. Mystery. Okay, okay. Page 16. So we can only, in fact of contingent, we can only have conjecture. Conjecture, probability. We can say probably, you know, that man made that woman for 3 years, 4 years. They seem to, probably they will engage marriage, probably. It's normal. But suddenly, the day before, they say no. We have a case in the village of my father, Saint-Geneviève, in north of Montreal. And the people were at the church. I told that to you. And the bride was there, and the groom was not there. And people waited and waited. Finally, the groom never came to the church for the marriage. Instead, he went to the Trappist monastery. He became a Trappist. He died a few years ago. He was 90-something. Mystery. Why? I don't know. It's a mystery. Sometimes, I'm sure your family, they say, why are you? You're stupid, make him a priest, a sister. Hey! The foliage of the cross. Okay. and go in the middle now. So difficulty from infallibility of God foreknowledge. That difficulty is here. Our knowledge of the future is probable, is a conjecture. Can we put in God any limitation, any conjecture? No. So that means God knows the future not only He knows, but He knows it with infallibility. We know with fallibility. I can predict, okay, you will become a good priest. You will become a master of novices. You become a social worker. I can, make some prophecy. But probably it will not happen like that. I know when I was young religious, they make prophecy. You will become a provincial, and many are no more religious at all. We were 35 novices and only 5 stayed. So in the gospel, many are called, only a few. You stay. Okay. So in God there is. That is the problem. There is infallibility here. He knows with infallibility what I will do. For my brother, my sister, I can say only with probability, conjecture, maybe, probably he will do that. And on my surprise, he will not do that. He will do another thing. But God knows. Big problem, no? Big problem. Huh? Don't lose the few hair you have. So I will go to the text. God, foreknowledge must be entirely certain and infallible. And whatever God foreknows as occurring in some future time must infallibly take place. So what is the difficulty? How can we reconcile the infallibility of God's foreknowledge with the existence of freedom in human action? There is an apparent contradiction. For the very meaning of freedom is that the act that proceeds from the will could be otherwise than it is. That means it must be not it must be not preview for us, of course. No? What is at the same time is foreseen by God cannot. That's very cannot be otherwise than He foresees it. God knew from all eternity, knows from all eternity that I will teach philosophy here this morning. And for me, I am freely here. And for God, I am freely here. He knows that. But He does not destroy my freedom. On the contrary, He sustains my freedom. How? No answer. In fact, the problem is the how. And if you can answer how, you will become a doctor of the church like Saint Catherine of Siena, your sister. Okay, I continue. It is a very old difficulty. Next page. So here we have 3 quotations of St. Thomas. I will try to summarize that here now on the board. That text is very dense. I prefer to explain that in my own words, and after you can read the text. Okay, so what we say, God knows. The problem is, man knows, and God knows contingent thing. The problem is here. Okay? So man knows contingent thing in itself. So remember, if P then Q. That is the cause, that's the effect. Or if you want, that is the thing itself. And that is the cause. So, we know, man knows the thing in itself as present. For example, I know that you are here present. It is a fact for me. I know that. So I know in itself, the thing that in itself. As present. It is now. I present. I can affirm that you are MSA, or you are Dominican sister, or you are conscious, or you are diocesan, because now it is. I see the effect. I see you directly. In fact, that effect is already determined. The effect is determined. Why? Because it is an effect. The effect is determined. Okay? And I can say that with infallibility. It's not necessary to be the Pope to say that you are here and I'm here. It's infallible. My senses and my knowledge, direct knowledge. Okay? But in the case of God, God also knows things in itself. He knows every one of us in itself. He knows the bird who was singing, that was singing. He knows the snow. He knows everything in itself, in their existence, even if they are contingent. You know? Even if he knows that thing, because he knows that the thing contingent. And things are contingent, they are contingent in their succession. No, God knows that things are changing. He knows that. It does not change, but He knows that things are successively. But God knows them not successively. We know things successively. God does not know things, not successively. He knows the things are changing, are for us, but He knows that not successively. That means He does not know, He knows directly the cause of the effect, the relation, without knowing all the succession, the passage from potency to one. You know that by successively, not successively, but simultaneously. So He knows the series of the sequence of causes in simultaneous at the same time. And God, you know, why? Because of it is eternal, because of the eternity. So God has, you know, eternity. Because God is eternal, He knows everything in a simple act of knowledge. He knows them. In St. Thomas have an expression, very beautiful expression, in their presentiality. In the fact that they are present. He knows all men from the beginning to the end of the world, the history of the world. He knows them present, in their presentiality, in the fact they are for Him present. We know them successively. For example, we study history. What happened before Jesus Christ, etc. We study that successively. God knows. You remember I took the scarf like that and like that, you know. He knows everything in one instant, everything. So He knows that things are successive for us, but for Him they are together. Okay? So now, secondly, man can know thing in this cause. Knows things in cause. In its cause as contingent. Well, for example, I can know the beautiful cake and very good cake my mother prepared. I can say I can know it in the being made by my mother. That means I can know contingent cause. You know, it's a fact we know. We can arrive to know the cause of things that are contingent. Okay. You cultivate rice, no? You cultivate rice. So you know, what do you do to cultivate rice? You put seed in the ground. You know the cause. And you preview that you will have corn. No? No, you will have rice. No? If you sow rice, you will have rice. Common sense, no? So we know the cause, even in contingency. But are you absolutely sure that you will have rice? No, maybe some insect will eat or they will destroy, I don't know, disease will arrive. But probably, very probably, if you work correctly, if you have rain, you will have rice. You know? So that is based on conjecture, conjecture, possibility, probability, conjecture, probability. Okay? God knows also things in their cause. Also, God knows things in their cause. But does he not know them as a conjecture? No. He knows them with absolute certitude. In fact, God knows the thing in itself, or if you want, the effect. He knows also the thing in this cause, in their cause. And he knows with absolute certitude what he will do. For example, suppose you will help tomorrow, suppose you will give $5 to a poor. Okay? Tomorrow you give $5 to a poor. That is a contingent act. God knows in the cause, that he knows in you the fact that you will give $5 tomorrow. He knows that with infallibility, absolute certitude. But you, when you give $5 to the poor, you are free. And you are sustained by the action of God. So you see the difference. Here we are only conjecture. We can produce the future. And today the scientists are very humble. They say minus or plus or minus. Because there is always possibility of error or margin of something exceptional. Okay? So the knowledge of God is simultaneous. He knows everything simultaneously and from all eternity. He knows in itself all the thing in itself as effect, and he knows the thing as cause perfectly. We know the thing directly when they are present to us with infallibility, of course, but we know them in succession, and we know the cause of things with their effect only based on probability. Probably, if you study here, you will have a baccalaureate in philosophy or theology. You know, I can say with certitude you will not have a master in biology. You know, but I can make a mistake. We never know. You know? Yes, brother.
So you would say for God, we know, well, for man it's in probability, but in God the cause would be in possibility? He knows when they're a cause.
But God knows the cause of F. You know, let us take an example. Here, itself, it is the act, for example, to give $5 to a poor. Okay, that is the act itself. Okay, and the effect, the effect. He knows not only the effect you will do, he knows you as the cause of that effect. He knows that with infallibility. There is no doubt for God that he will give $5. Or there is no doubt that that man will kill Kennedy. But he killed Kennedy freely, and you give $5 free. And that is the problem. So we have a few minutes for that. I go to the next paragraph, next page 19. So the problem is to conciliate my freedom. So St. Thomas said, God is predetermining us to accomplish a free act. God is predetermining us. So Molinas, Saint Robert Bellarmine, and Suarez, they say we don't accept that because in fact it's to deny freedom. If I had predetermined to give $5 to the poor, I'm not free. So they say God knows you will give that, but He will give you. He have a science of the condition that prepare you to do that. He called that scientia media, and you have that very well explained. If you go to next page, that page 22, 22 here in the square. But if you go to the paragraph that it is according to Molina, go to just the fourth line at the end. According to this view, the divine concurrence does not consist in some sort of predetermination of the will, but God put His intrinsically indifferent concurrence, because we can do nothing without the concurrence of God, at the disposal of the will, of human will, and then effects along with the will, and the will act in spite of the duality of causes. There is only one effect. But we'll come on that when we study in a few classes the cooperation between God and man. So I cannot give the answer totally. The answer is here. That paragraph is very, very, very important to understand Molina. God, you know, if we see God knows everything, we are predetermined. He knows everything. We cannot deny that. But before His decrease, and before His eternal decrease, He gave, according to Molina, some possibility, some condition to do a free act. But the problem is not there. The problem is how. In fact, I will summarize that like this. In one end, we must affirm that God knows everything. We can do nothing without Him. He is omniscient, omnipotent, etc. Okay? On the other side, we must affirm that man is free. No? The problem is how they join. The problem is the how. How? How we can conciliate that. And in fact, there is no answer.
Oh my gosh.
No answer is satisfying. In fact, it's like a man. There is a fog. There is somebody in danger. He threw a cord, a rope. He does not see. He does not see how the man would grab over. But we know. We hold the two ends of the rope, of the chain, you know. We don't know how they. Nobody. I think that is a limit of philosophy, even theology. Yeah, limit.
Oh, wow.
We cannot go further than that. St. Thomas, nobody. St. Augustine, nobody. St. Augustine has to go to the dentist after that. But we can say, you know, I finish by that. The example of St. Thomas is a man on the fortress. Imagine a skyscraper in New York. We are at the top. You see two cars in two different streets like that. Okay? You are a good mathematician. You know the speed. You know if they continue at the same speed, they will crash. and in fact they crash. Are you the cause of their crashing?
No.
No. Even if you pay the car, even you give the money to them, their decision is their own decision. How? I cannot answer. Except there is a part of mystery. The limit of philosophy is here. Here we touch the limit of philosophy. We cannot go further than that. We must affirm what we know absolutely. We must accept the how. Both are conciliate. Only God can explain that. It will be a mystery. So try to continue if you want to do better than St. Augustine. But what is important is to justify why we have to accept and to affirm that God knows everything, He sustains everything. At the same time, we must affirm that man is. And the solution of Molina is a solution to justify that there is no contradiction. No contradiction, but there is no positive demonstration of the how. So, as a young philosopher, be humble, accept there is limit to human reasoning. Now, freely, from all eternity, God knows that you are going to eat a good meal.